Buonasera a tutti che ci sta seguendo in diretta e un saluto anche a chi ci seguirà poi nei prossimi giorni. Io mi chiamo Beppe Pezzini e sono un professore di latino in Inghilterra e collaboro con l'associazione Newman già da tanti anni. Questa sera con noi abbiamo due ospiti, abbiamo Fadi Bejan che ci collegamento dal Libano, Daniele Sacco invece che ci chiama da Milano. Questa sera la nostra trasmissione, lo anticipo subito, sarà in inglese, quindi per chi ci sta seguendo in diretta daremo la possibilità, metteremo dei sottotitoli, dei riassunti nella chat di YouTube, per chi magari non ha una comprensione dell'inglese così precisa, però poi ci saranno poi nei prossimi giorni la possibilità di riseguire l'incontro sottotitolato in italiano. Io faccio adesso una brevissima introduzione ancora in italiano e poi andremo direttamente, ci muoveremo direttamente in inglese. Due questioni velocissime. Innanzitutto, come mai abbiamo scelto di fare questo incontro sul Libano? È un mondo martoriato dalla guerra, quello in cui ci troviamo, è un mondo in cui, proprio mentre stiamo parlando, lo scacchiere del Medio Oriente continua a cambiare con un evento appena accaduto in Siria, per cui paradossalmente è come se tutti i paesi del Medio Oriente sono in qualche modo colpiti da quello che succede, come ci dicevamo poco prima con Faid. C'è però una ragione più profonda, sia per l'affezione che io personalmente, ma molti di noi hanno per il Libano, una terra che già da molto tempo è stata considerata dai papi come una grande speranza per il Medio Oriente. Negli ultimi anni questa speranza sembra essersi affievolita, si può dire, a partire soprattutto dalla grande esplosione del 2020, eppure questa sera vogliamo ricominciare, rimettere al centro la speranza. Una speranza che però non è legata diciamo così, ai grandi movimenti geopolitici, alle grandi rivoluzioni sociali ed economiche, ma che ha a che fare semmai con quella che è la libertà delle persone. Un'idea che abbiamo molto qua alla Newman, ma in generale con le persone che ci hanno seguito in questi anni, è che è possibile cambiare la storia. Gli uomini hanno la libertà di cambiare la storia e lo fanno generalmente non con le grandi rivoluzioni, non tentando di prendere il potere, ma collaborando per quello che possono nel luogo in cui sono. Questa serata quindi è una serata dedicata alla speranza, possiamo dire, alla speranza del Libano, e lo faremo con un testimone, diciamo, eccezionale che è qui con noi. Io ringrazio molto Fadi Bejan per essersi collegato questa sera. Ringrazio anche molto Daniele Sacco, che in qualche modo è la mastermind, la mente di questo incontro, e poi, come sentiremo più avanti, una forza importante in questo progetto di cui ci parleremo. Ho già messo immediatamente caricato sulla nostra finestra quello che è la pagina di Proterra Santa della presentazione del progetto, che si chiama Work in Progress Libano Siria. Potete vedere già in alto alla vostra destra la possibilità di donare. Uno degli obiettivi di questo incontro è quello di sostenere questo progetto, quindi, come poi anche sottolineeremo nei prossimi giorni, è molto importante, in particolare in arrivo del Natale, provare a sostenere questa iniziativa che incontreremo questa sera. Io adesso mi sposterò da una lingua all'altra, mi sposterò in inglese. Vi chiederei di seguire sulla chat, metteremo un piccolo riassunto, non immediatamente, ma di quello che sta succedendo, ma da adesso in poi mi sposto dall'italiano all'inglese e continueremo la nostra conversazione dei prossimi 40-45 minuti in questa lingua. So thank you very much, Fadi and Daniele, for being with us tonight. So we have, the idea is to have a conversation of about 40 minutes. And we'll have a 40 minutes conversation on four main questions that I'm going to ask to each of you. I would like starting from Daniele and then to Fadi, and then we can go to the end of the conversation. If there are then any questions from the audience, they are very welcome indeed. So the first question that I have for Daniele is, I will briefly introduce Daniele myself before he can talk more about his own particular history. Daniele is the head of HR for Mondadori, but tonight he's also one of the, he's speaking to us in his role of one of the collaborators, main collaborators of this project. Can I ask you, Daniele, to say to us something about yourself, about your career history, very briefly, but also how you have decided to participate in this project and how, in a way, your life led you to Libano?
Okay, Beppe. Can you hear me well?
We can hear you very well.
Excellent. Just a couple of words about myself. And as a profession, as you said, I'm in human resources. I've been in human resources for all my life in a number of big corporations around the world, in different industries, in the high tech with Hewlett Packard, in the food industry with Kraft and Ferrero, in the mining industry with Rio Tinto, and now I'm in publishing with Mondadori, the #1 publisher in Italy, as head of human resources, organization, legal, and a number of other things. But apart from myself, as I said, as a profession, I've been around the world because I always had, for the last, I would say, 20 years, global roles. So I met a number of different cultures. And I also, bumped into this charity project. I've always been fond of, giving back to people. In fact, another way to give back, I'm also teaching university at the Catholic University in Italy, in Milano. But another way is, to give some time to different charities. And I bumped into the Pro Terra Santa Association. Pro Terra Santa is an association that is relevant in what is I would say, an enlarged concept of Holy Land, because apart from Israel, it's active in Jordan, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Egypt. And basically, they are into two different fields. One is the, let's say, protection of the cultural heritage of, Christians, but not only Christians. So it's a kind of a cultural mission. And on the other hand, is also help to the local populations when they are in danger, when there are, natural disaster, or unfortunately, as we know, in the last period of time, more often the wars. So they've been, very, very active in the last period of time, giving education, food, medicine to all those populations. They decided at a certain point in time to open a different program in Syria and in Lebanon. And it's about a very interesting idea of helping young people, people with entrepreneurial ideas to develop their ideas, to make their dream true, as we say. And of course, they realized that they didn't have, the competencies to help them all. So they asked myself and a number of managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs to give some, free time to those guys to develop their competencies, their programs, their projects, and so on and so forth. So basically, I jumped into it. I always wanted to go to Lebanon for, personal reasons, for friendship with a number of people. I've never been able to get there before. It's a fantastic place. It's a place with highly educated people, with very high education, with a lot of experience, and where there has been a coexistence of, different cultures, different religions for, a number of, centuries, basically. So it's been a model, as you rightly said in your introduction. So I really decided to, work on it with some of the friends and help them, to develop their ideas. Then, if you want, I can expand a bit on that later on. But the basic idea is taking, people either with small projects that we call it social, that are helping people to, let's say, round, their income or to survive, or real startups. So that are real, companies, either existing or real startups, and make this ideas happening. So that's the way it is. It's a very simple thing, but we do provide, a number of things for that.
Thank you very much, Daniele. I think that was very, very clear. And now we'll move from Milano to Libano itself and introduce Fadi Bejan, who is one of the responsible of Pro Terra Santa in Libano, è responsible for Terra in Libano, and he's also himself an entrepreneur. But Fadi is now in Libano, but he has had a very adventurous life in a way. Can we ask you, Fadi, to sum it up in, let's say, 4 or 5 minutes? I mean, you're very, very long and adventurous wandering around the world.
Sure. Actually, I came to this humanitarian world 8 years ago. I have a PhD in economics. I used to work between France and Africa and China. So I worked almost 10 years in finance and economics in private companies. And then I decided to come back to Lebanon 8 years ago. Actually, I came, it was not planned to start with humanitarian NGOs, humanitarian field, etc. It happened like this. And I took the opportunity without knowing what will happen a few years later with the beginning of this crisis, etc. Because I traveled a lot. I was born in Africa. I left Africa at 18. I went to France. I did all my university there. I had my PhD. I gave courses for 1 year at university. I worked in private sector in France. And then I decided to leave to start something new. So I went to Lebanon for 2 years. It was pure for work in finance. Then I went to China, came back to Africa, all this in 10 years. And then I decided to come to Lebanon. So in Lebanon, I started in the humanitarian field. And 4 years ago...
Can I ask you, sorry, Fadi, can interrupt you. Why did you decide to come back to Lebanon? I mean, a lot of people move away Lebanon. Instead, you kind of came back. I mean, what drove you back to Lebanon at that stage?
Okay, this is something that we cannot explain actually, because exactly most of people are leaving. They left. We have the first wave of Lebanese people leaving the country. It was end of the 19th century. Okay, because they're trying to run away because we had the Ottomans here, etc. So this was the first wave. The second wave was during the Second World War. The third wave was during the Civil War, and this is the fourth wave after the beginning of this crisis in 2019. Okay, why I decided? Because I wanted to try to live here. I lived in away. I was born there. My grandparents arrived to Africa in 1959. I was born there. I lived almost 25 years, 26 years in Africa. So I wanted to change. I wanted to try something new. And I wanted to try the Lebanese lifestyle. I wanted to know the country, to know the culture a bit more. So I decided to come back. And
can I ask you, Fadi, did you grow up as a Lebanese? I mean, with a Lebanese culture? I mean, you were in Africa from Lebanese parents, but did your parents kind of talk to you about Lebanon? I mean, you grew up with a strong Lebanese identity or not?
Yes, definitely. I used to come every summer to Lebanon, at least for 1 month. Okay, we have it. We have it. All the Lebanese people have it. You know, we don't want to cut with Lebanon. We have these roots. So, but it's different if you live in Australia or in America than if you live in Europe or in Africa. First, it's closer, so it's easier to come to Lebanon every year, and you have a bigger community. For example, in Africa, I was in Ivory Coast. We had the Lebanese community is around 140,000 people. So we have our little Beirut, you know, like you have Chinatown in New York, you have Beirut town in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. So I lived in this Lebanese culture, and I wanted to live it in Lebanon. And this was way before the crisis started. And during this phase, when I arrived here, I didn't know why I came back actually, and why I started with humanitarian field. And then in 2019, when the crisis started, we had all these protests here, all the economy collapsed, the unemployment rate reached 49%. The level of poverty now is around 70% of the population. So, and we started to work in this. You know, I started with Terra Sancta 4 years ago, exactly after the explosion of the port of Beirut. Okay, and we tried to help a lot all the population, all the communities around us, So the work actually is divided into two parts. We have the emergency projects and we have the development projects. Development project is typically WIP, our work in progress. While the emergency is more to react to what's happening. So we are doing helping elderly people and very poor people, providing them food parcels, hygiene kits, first aid kits, medicines, medical checkups, coverage of medical analysis. We are supporting also the mental health, because you can imagine that in this kind of countries, this kind of instability, the crisis. So mental health is something that we try to take care of. It's the population here is completely damaged mentally. You cannot imagine.
I find this very interesting because, you know, in the West, we do have a lot of problems with mental health, okay? And because our students are depressed, because they don't get very exams and so on. Can you tell us what exactly is mental health in Lebanon, okay? What are the kind of the main events to which people have to respond? You mentioned before the economic crisis, you mentioned the explosion of the port. You mentioned the 70% level of poverty, okay? So what's the kind of the typical mental health situation of especially a young man or young woman in Lebanon? What kind of emergency you need to normally to face? I mean, depression, suicide, or something?
Exactly. So the first thing we noticed after the beginning of this crisis, one important thing is to know that with the bankruptcy of the banks, all the people, they lost all their money. We all lost our money in the banks. So you wake up in the morning and you realize that you have a bank account, you just have numbers. That's it. But you lost everything. So this was a trigger. So for 1 year after this, we saw a huge number of suicides. This is the first thing. Then this coupled to the explosion of the port, plus instability in Lebanon and in all the area, all the region, and it continues until now. We have this war with Israel. We have now what's happening in Syria. So you cannot imagine how people first are traumatized because of the explosion of the port, but also they are sad, they are in depression, we don't have jobs, we don't have money. Our currency lost its value 60 times of its value. Before the crisis, $1 was 1,500 Lebanese pounds. Now it's 90,000 Lebanese pounds, so 60 times of its value. So all this created a kind of okay, let's call it depression first, plus trauma, plus another thing to take into consideration is that at the same time, the educational system collapsed. Okay, the public sector, public schools are not working. The special needs public schools are not working, so it's all related to private. Okay, and it costs a lot. So the family who has one children with special needs, for example, this is just an example I'm giving you now. The average salary of the parents will be $400 to $600 per month, and they need to pay the rent, the electricity, and tuition fees for a special needs school, for example, is $1,000 per month. Just to give you the gap. Okay, so this we have a special need kid. But with this situation, the parents are living a pure depression also. They are giving up. So we're living in this environment now. It's been 5 years. And we don't know what's coming next.
Thank you, Fadi. We'll stop you for a moment now and then go back to Daniele now. Okay, so the situation of that you kind of have to live is very, very clear. Can I ask you, Daniele, to tell us a bit more about your own relationship with Lebanon in the past few years? I mean, you said before that you were very fascinated by the culture and the kind of this place of where people live from different backgrounds. So what's been your experience in the past 5 years? I mean, the situation that Fadi is talking us about. I mean, what have you discovered from the perspective of a Westerner who maybe has different problems somehow? What was your kind of understanding of the situation coming from a different society and background?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question, because it gives you the opportunity to explain a bit more what we do and what we want to do there. So first and foremost, let me tell you, the big difference between what we live here and what the Lebanese live there is they are faced with real issues and real dramas, if you want. So here, mental health, coming back to your question, mental health is related to, if you want, the position of the eye that has been damaged in relation with the reality. So most of the issues that we see here is because of the weakness of the eye in front of reality. What I saw there, though, it's the eye is confronted with real dramas. When I met, those guys, I didn't know anything about what was going on in Lebanon, and I think Fadi described very well. So can you imagine that 2022, an entire country switches from a bank system to a cash system. Every transaction is cash. Okay, can you imagine? What is the problem there? So the money that you have in the banks are lost. You cannot take it anymore. So all your savings are there, but you cannot take it anymore. And in the meantime, there is an inflation of 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, 50 times. So it's becoming really challenging, really challenging, real challenges, real issues. And then, comes to the lack of medicines. I've seen, situations that I didn't want to see in my life. So especially the elders decide not to take care of their diseases because they don't want to leave, debits to their relatives, to their sons, to their grandson, etc. They prefer to die, okay? And the hospital system, if you don't have the money, they throw you out, basically. So, and you're back home with your problems, with your cancer, with very little, support. Education. That country has been probably the highest educated population in all the Middle Eastern world. People with 1, 2, degrees, with masters, PhDs, etc. Now, the teachers cannot go and teach the pupils because they don't have the money for the fuel. The electricity is going, back and forth, and therefore, all the communication, Wi-Fi, etc., works not in an ideal way, and so you have to make up your mind and how to survive. And in fact, people have 2, 3, 4 different jobs. But what they found there, though, is an incredible energy. And in fact, the problems that Fadi was describing are completely different from what we live here in our Western world. Because actually, there is still a lot of energy in facing, those issues. If the same thing happened here, probably we would have been, everyone in our beds, laying in our beds, and people instead they try to do all their best. They invent new things, and the guys that we met, they do incredible things. For instance, I have in mind, Jimmy. Jimmy is a student, is an engineer, and he said, listen, I know that there is a problem with electricity, but people here do not want to give up making weddings, celebrations, Christmas, birthday celebrations, etc., etc. So what I do, okay, I bring them the electricity. So he bought a couple of vans. He put some, engines in there to produce electricity, and he goes there to help people to celebrate. Can you imagine that? So it's a fantastic example of resilience, in facing reality. But I can give a number of other fantastic examples about that. I will give you later on. But
yeah. So at this point, Thank you very much, Daniele. I think at this point you've introduced a couple of examples of your entrepreneurs, we may say. But to introduce a bit more of the project, I will ask Fadi again to tell us a bit more about the origin of this particular work in progress project or Porto Santa. What's the origin of it? You already said something about it. I mean, the explosion of the port, the desire and need to respond to the emergencies, how that kind of need, desire to respond to emergencies developed into a real project. And can you start telling us something about your role in it?
Yes. As I was saying, we have two types of projects. We have, in general, in humanitarian field, we work in emergency and in development. So what happened when we started with Porto Santa in Lebanon? It was pure emergency. So it was to answer the crisis, okay, poverty, etc., and rebuild what happened after the port, after the explosion. Okay, so this was the emergency. So pure emergency, helping elderly people, helping poor people in different ways with medicines, medical checkups, mental health, tuition for scholarships, and food parcels, hygiene. This was the pure emergency. Okay, but at some point, you cannot continue doing just emergency. Okay, so at some point, you need to think for 3, 4, 5 years ahead. So how you do it? You create a development project. So typically what happens when you have, let's say you start with emergency, you have 100% of your projects as emergency. Okay, you start to decrease them, let's say 60% emergency, and you try with 40% of development for a few years. And after 2, 3, 4 years, the opposite. So you have 80% of development, 20% of emergency. You know, this is the normal cycle, but this takes time. I mean, we're talking about 7, 8, 10 years. So this is how the idea was created. And at the same time, because we were thinking of that, I mean, we are in emergency, yes, but this could stay like this for 10 or 20 years. Okay. And at the same time, we have young people, they have ideas, but they don't have the fundings for it. This is the first thing. And at the same time, this was kind of an answer from us, because what we saw during the first 2 years after the beginning of this crisis is that 400,000 of Lebanese left the country. All of them between 20 years old and 45 years old, so all the youth. So, okay, we are working at a very small scale. I don't say no, but at least we try to keep them here. We try to give them hope to stay in the country, to rebuild the country.
And how do you do it exactly? I mean, so I feel it's very interesting that in a way, as Daniele was saying before, your starting point is something real in a way. So in the reality you're talking about is, just to clarify, that a group of young people with ideas that needed support. How did you find them? How did you help them? How can you, I mean, before Daniele was already talking the idea of a startup. I mean, the model of startup that we have here in the West is that we give like a lot of money away, at least in the UK. 20% of the money will be well invested, the other 80% will be lost, but in a way, this is the way things will develop. What do you mean in your case to help the young people to develop a startup and to sustain it? What do you do concretely?
Okay, we have different types of projects. We have the social ones that are very small projects usually. So a young lady working from home, doing craft things, for example, or food at home, you know, this kind of small project. This is one part. And we have other type of projects, more complicated, that need more fundings, okay? Sometimes in high tech, sometimes in sports, sometimes in cosmetics. Okay, so it depends on the level of the project, and they are divided into 2 categories. Okay, so this is how we start. Now, how we bring them, how we know them, we have different channels. We do online advertisement, online posts, okay, on different channels. And we have also our own database, because we are working with almost 16,000 people in Lebanon as beneficiaries. So our main idea was to try to help our beneficiaries, not only in emergency, but also with development. So we try to select from this database, some of them, most of them will be social, in the group of social, And we do online posts to bring applications. So we send an application, and when they fill it, we do a selection, etc., etc. This is the process.
Can I ask you, what kind of criteria do you use for the selection process? I mean, I'm pretty sure that you receive a lot of proposals, but what are, if from your perspective, the factors, the elements that you see that make you tell you this is a good project I want to support?
Okay, so we have different kind of criteria, of course. So first, the age. So they should be between 20 and 35, okay, with a minimum degree, minimum level of education, especially for the ones who want to be in the category of not small businesses, okay. So and then they have to fill an application form. We have different kind of questions. This is, after they fill it, we try to understand which one really wants it. It's the level of involvement, and we try to understand it before we put them into this program. We do many committees, we meet them, we talk between each other, we meet many times to understand which one really wants it, which one is really involved, because it's easy to apply to something like this, and then after 2-3 months, you give up. So for us, the most important thing is the one who really wants it.
Thank you very much, Fadi. At this point, I will move back to Daniele and ask Daniele in a way to tell us what he has seen. I mean, in a sense that what the project does is very, very clear. Coming from your expertise and career, you have seen a lot of different projects. You have traveled the world, you have worked for a lot of different companies. Even in Italy, you are a consultant for many different businesses and so on. Are there any of these projects that really struck you? I mean, what did you see there when you're in your years of collaboration with Fadi in this group?
Yeah, no, I found first of all a certain, let's say, sophistication of those ideas. You will not, for instance, expect that people will talk about organic things. They speak about sustainable packaging. We have seen a number of very high level let's say ideas, let's put it this way. In some other cases, they're simple ideas, but they have a strong cultural background. For instance, I give you a couple of examples. We have a project about food transformation in the Mount Lebanon. And I've interviewed, the project owner. The name is Paola, and she wants to, transform fruits and vegetables, following, her tradition. She has 2 degrees at the Sorbonne in Paris in microbiology and nutritionism, and basically she wants to get back, to her homeland. And which was basically farming in the high level mountains, okay, purely organic food, all right. So I asked them, we asked them, why do you want to do this? And she was really moved by this question, and we have been moved too. And basically she said, because of 3 reasons. And the first reason is because my grandfather, taught me, the love for, Mount Lebanon, and I really want to get back to that place. Secondly, for gratitude, the gratitude for my parents, that they spent so much energy, money, and hard work to help me studying in Paris. So now they are in trouble, so I want to get back and give them back something. Thirdly, and she stopped and she said, if all the young people like me will leave the country, what is going to be to this country? So also, a social, let's say, idea of, what's your place in the society. So this was really very interesting for us, because we often go in those places thinking that you're going to learn something. And rightly so, because you give your competencies, you give your time, you give your money, also, because we provide a tutorship specific for those people in their field. We have a local coach, we give them grants, We give them, loans. So we give them a lot, but we also take back a lot. And when I was saying before, a position in front of reality, a responsible position in front of reality, this is really what I meant, before. So this is just, an example, but I can carry on. For instance, Ara, who lives in the Bekaa Valley. The Bekaa Valley is a place that, has been under severe bombing for the last few months. And he lives there, he works there. And he decided to do an application to help, young and to help small farmers, very small farmers, to maximize their crops, their harvests, through a technology that is a geolocalization technology that has behind a huge database. So it teaches you, based on the position of your field in the globe, what to seed, what to grow, what to harvest, how to do this in the different months of the year. So it's a very high level, high tech, stuff. In fact, this project got a prize in Milan in an exhibition of innovation organized by a magazine called Focus magazine, for instance. So this sort of things. Or George, I give you another example. George has decided to create a platform to help small craftsmen, Lebanese craftsmen, because there is a high level of craftsmen in Lebanon. So they work wood, they work silver. They do fantastic jobs, but they are very small. That they have a hard time to sell this stuff. So he decided then, to bring them together, and there are now, I think, kind of 150 of them, and to create a platform to sell their stuff all over the world. In particular, of course, he focuses right now in the Middle East, but potentially, this kind of things are going to go all over the world. Do not forget that we have 4 million Lebanese in Lebanon, and we have 13 million Lebanese in the diaspora, okay? So it's 3 times the population of current Lebanon that lives around the world. And they want to reconnect with their country as much as they can. And so George wants to provide them with the stuff that can reconnect them also, not just, practically, but also emotionally to their, home country. So I can carry on because, I've seen enthusiastic people, and they really want to make a difference for themselves. And let me give another example, of a project that we are funding. And the name of this project is Agonista. And Agonista basically is a number of coffees, small restaurants and coffees that employs for 80% special need people, especially with Down syndrome and autistic syndrome. The founder, Wasim, has been a physiotherapist, doing physiotherapy to Down syndrome and autistic people. And he said, I saw a lot of potential in those guys. And I said to myself, why the hell nobody is helping them to work? So I create something to do so. And in the project that we are working together with them, 2 of those guys, one Down syndrome guy, George, and Farah, that is autistic syndrome lady, will become not only employees but also shareholders. 30% of the shares are going to go through a Pro Terra Santa, to WIP, to them, so they will become shareholders in this enterprise. That is a very innovative way to tackle the special need people thing. And it's a beautiful place where to go. They are all enthusiastic, and they do a very good quality. It's a very nice place where they work. And I asked Wasim, but why you decided to do so, apart from looking at the potential of those people? Because he said, Daniele, in the current Lebanese situation, those people, if we don't do anything, will be the last of the latest. So, and he said, I wanted to do something for them, because they will be abandoned. They will be, left away from, the mainstream life. So, and in fact, they merit much more. So, and again, when I said, that you come back enriched, is exactly, what I wanted to say before. So you go there to give something, and you go back with more than what you gave at the end.
Thank you, Daniele. I will say we have got 5-10 minutes to go, and I would like to conclude with the fourth and final question. So in a way, we have kind of started from the personal experience of the two of you, your encounter with Lebanon, the situation that the Lebanon has to go through, a terrible situation the Lebanon has to live in the past 4 years, and how you address it. We in the West not only have, let's say, minor problems about unreal things, but we also are quite cynical. There is a kind of a level of cynicism, and especially the perception that nothing can be done. I mean, if you've been following the American elections results, there have been many polls that have pointed out how many people went to vote or did not go to vote with the perception nothing can really change. And one of the reasons why they voted for Trump, for instance, is the sense of powerlessness. There is nothing that can be done. I mean, like the war, the strength, the powers of the world are so strong. History is something that cannot really be contrasted. So there is a sense of the individual people have no freedom whatsoever. Thinking about everything you said tonight about this project that have been going on in Lebanon and so on, yes, you have like a database of 14,000 people, whatever. Still, you're really a bit of a drop in the ocean. Can I ask you, how do you think that your particular contribution, and I will start with Fadi, how do you think that your particular contribution can change the history of Lebanon? Do you think that you're kind of really having an impact on all the challenges of your country, or sometimes you're kind of overcome by, if not despair, a sense of the same sense of impotence that we see a lot here in the West?
Okay, sure. What we do now, we cannot take the place, we cannot replace the country, cannot replace the government. That's for sure. Okay, but at least we try. We try, and I think if many others of us, like us, try to do the same, we could have an impact. We could have an impact. I'm pretty sure of it. At least with what we're doing it with our full energy. We put a lot of effort in it. A lot of positivity, and we put our heart in it. So starting from that point, I think even if we do small things, it's a small scale, at least we do it right. So this is the first thing. Then if we don't do it, I mean, we base our job and our mission here, it's just to create hope for these people. And if even us, we don't have hope and faith in what we are doing, we cannot communicate this to them. So this is first it's our job to do it. It's our job to believe in what we are doing. So this is where we take our strength to continue. It's not easy. We know that we have a lot of obstacles, a lot of negative signs all around us, inside the country, in all the region around us, with all what's happening now, all the world. But what? We stop? We cannot. If we stop, we fall. And I don't think we want to fall. Not me, not Daniele, with all the guys helping us. I think this is the most important thing we try to do. We still have faith. We still have this positive energy driving us. So until it
Can
stops,
I ask you, Fadi, sorry for interrupting, where does this positivity come from, in a way? So why you have it and the people don't have it? I mean, how do you find it? I mean, the moments where you see all the shadows of the war like overcoming you, where do you go back? I mean, what kind of drives you to start again and keep going?
It's not easy, but we have to. That's all I can say. I mean, I have faith. I'm someone that is always optimistic. I try to avoid thinking of negative things, try to avoid thinking of all the problems, even if we live them, we have them around us, But I mean, if we just focus on them, we not do anything. So we put them aside and we build, we rebuild, we fall and we start again. This is it. Otherwise, we'll not be able to do anything. Where we bring our strength, I think just hope and faith. That's it.
Thank you very much, Fadi. A final question for Daniele. Again, coming with this perspective, I mean, of someone who has seen a lot of the movements in the world. I mean, you have been in positions of powers in many different companies, and even in your position now, you see the big picture in a way. And yet also you see the small picture. So you see the small picture, or at least the little picture, the so important picture that Fadi has been talking about tonight, but you also see the small, big picture. How do two things come together, Daniele? I mean, in what sense you think, in what sense Fadi's work and hope are reasonable in a way in front of all the challenges of the world, for what you have seen and what you see?
But Beppe, we don't claim, to change the world. We don't claim to change Lebanon, but there is already something happening that we are changing. We are changing already. We are becoming friends. We are not leaving anybody behind, and this friendship is spreading, between us. So our claim is to be a spark of hope for that country, a spark of hope for ourselves first. That through hard work and working together, everything is possible. And it's also, if you want, what we call in these days, social sustainability, because we work together independently from different cultures, different religions, different backgrounds. Shia people, there are Christian people, there are Maronites, there are Sunni people, there are whatever, Palestinians, they're all working together. And this is a spark of hope that is possible already there. It's already there to watch for everybody. And this means, in a world where, the war is prevailing, means peace. And this is very important, for all of us. And first and foremost, as I said before, this is already changing ourselves. And that's the reason why we see that a change is possible. We see in ourselves. We didn't know each other before, but we treat each other, as best friends, as we knew each other for all life at the end of the day. So, and it means a lot, I think, for creating also cohesiveness that is needed in this terrible situation for that country, because that country can go through what's happening also to their neighbors, like Israel, Palestine, and Syria nowadays, only if they will find a cohesiveness in themselves. And I think this is possible, because if I look at this new generation of guys that I've been working with in the last 2.5 years, I can see that this is possible. So we're not going to change the world with 30 projects, but we can definitely be something that can be copied, can be replicated, and can be a spark.
Thank you very much, Daniele. Thank you very much, Fadi. I think it's time to conclude. First of all, I wanted to thank you, both of you, for being with us here tonight. And I really like a word that has come out a few times tonight, which is the word real and possible. I mean, something is possible because it's real. I mean, with something, it is possible because we see it. And going back to what we were saying before, Daniele, that one of the main problems we have in the West is the problem of the connection between the eye and reality. So paradoxically, the way to start again is to go back to reality, and go back to reality has to do also with the kind of exercise that we've been doing tonight here together. Before we say goodbye and good night to everyone, I have put here again the website of the Porta Santa, and especially the page where you can find more details on the project that Daniele and Fadi are involved with. You can see, again, I stress it on the top right, the red button, Donate Now, where you can give your donation. And I will strongly recommend you to do it before Christmas. I'm sure that the coming months will be very difficult. And as Fadi was saying before, there is a lot of warring at the moment, while we speak tonight about what's happening in Syria. So let's not forget the Middle East. I mean, we should never forget the Middle East, but I think that Lebanon in particular, it should really be in our eyes and our minds in the coming months, especially. So thank you very much tonight to all of you. Thank you very much, Fadi. Thank you very much, Daniele. Thank you very much for all of you who have been with us tonight, and also for the people who will be following it in the following days. thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.